Jonathan, 1
Edgar.
year ago we wouldn't expect to see each other like this, sitting here next to each other.
Like this? Like this?
You wearing a mask made by my sister, huh? Come on, very cute.
It is cute, and it's good to count our blessings to be here together once again, sharing another very colorful drink, and and yes, as you see, we are socially distancing, and we are masked up. But I think we do have to take a drink, so we do have to take these off.
Yes, we can take it off, and actually, it's just a small testimony of the time we are right now facing here, and we wish that next year we have it without, but we never know. You can live with it, you know. We had here in Italy the tough school, and so we are wearing it a lot.
Yeah. Typically we have a spritz on the piazza. Here we have the famous tower in the background here in Cremona. No, what is this drink?
This is a crodino. It's a aperitivo without alcohol, and I like it when it's a little bit longer with sparkling water, and I think it's a nice drink. Refreshing and very Italian. Crodino.
Crodino. You know, this year has been a trying year for many people. It has also been a year of discovery. People discovering they have a hidden passion, a passion for music, for learning. The studio on my side has benefited from this year, teaching a lot online. How has your business been affected by this pandemic, being a very traditional luthier here in Cremona?
The very beginning of this year was really good. January, February, it was not very typical because there was so much business going on that I couldn't believe what's going on. January, February, usually it was a very weak period in the year, and towards the end of the year it was going up the sales. This year, January, February was just, I would say, my best ever January, February, and then came the epidemic. 1 week before the shutdown here in Italy, I even said, they can do something like this in China, but not in Europe or in Italy. And 1 week later, we were already all closed in our houses and nobody could go to work. And so the business went down from a lot of turnover to close to nothing, zero, not exactly zero because we made a few small tiny sales on the web shop. So it was really dramatic, but the nice thing was that everybody was in the same situation. So I was not really too much scared about, but certainly you have time finally to adjust a few things which you wanted to do before. Then when we opened in 4th of May, business was starting to run very well, and right now I cannot complain, and I'm happy that I can deliver great instruments and to fulfill the expectations of my customers with great instruments.
I'm really glad to hear that because, you know, it's a blessing to know Edgar. Not only does he have a web presence, not only do he have a website, he has a YouTube channel, and so we do have that in common, and he loves to make instruments, and I love to play his instruments. Go into the next question is, how do you buy a cello online? Like, have you sold a cello this year during this lockdown, or a violin if you want to talk about that? How would one, if they want to get a Edgar master violin or cello, how would a person go about doing that?
Me, myself, in January, February, I would just have said, I recorded, I sent you like this. During the lockdown, I had the idea that every instrument I have in stock, I get played, I record it, I put it on the internet, and in my web shop you can see every instrument which is available right now in the workshop. You can also listen 3 tracks recorded by professional musicians, and they are here from Cremona. And they come to my shop, and every time we finish an instrument, we record it, we register it, and we put it on the web. So if somebody wants now to buy an instrument, I would say, first of all, check whatever you find, look at the pictures, get informed about the maker and everything, and then if you have the chance to see and listen to the instrument, that's great. And then if this is not enough, give me a call or write an email. Tell me what kind of piece of music you want to have played if this, what you can listen, is not enough. We have a good packing system with lots of chips and a special shipping case packaging, which has additional cost, but on the other side, you know, it's the price to get it safe, set up, everything. You just have to tune it and that's it. But my customers are surprised that they get something so specifically how they want it to receive. I'm very, how you say, euphoric about this.
I always use that word, euphoric.
Euphoric, yeah.
I like that word. He's introduced me to new words on this
okay.
trip.
Euforico in Italiano, no? I don't know.
Euphoric.
Huh?
We're in Cremona, we say euphoric.
So how do you say in English?
Euphoric.
Euphoric, okay.
It's not an English word though.
Okay, it's not an English word,
Of course
okay.
not.
Enthusiastic.
French.
Enthusiastic?
Enthusiastic.
Okay, that's the right word, huh?
You definitely have the enthusiasm,
Yeah,
and I think people have seen it in your videos. My students have seen it. That's why some of them have purchased from you. In the near future, there's a possibility of sending to completely different parts of the world, New Zealand and Hawaii. So we will.
Yeah, today we were like talking with Hawaii, and then half an hour later with New Zealand. This is the reality, and it's nice. World became smaller. We're all in the same situation, and we just have to make the best out of it. You know, this is it. And in case you are unhappy, as soon as you can travel, come, visit, change, whatever. You know, it's every instrument you would purchase from my shop, at least, is not money thrown out of the window. This is real stuff. Value will go up. So it's a long time investment, whatever you buy from my shop.
Today you described something to one of the students. I did not know about this policy. You do have your Scala Perfecta, your Lineamaki, your apprentice masters, and your master cello. If somebody buys, let's say, the Scala Perfecta, and then decides they want a nicer instrument from your shop,
I trade
how
it
does
in,
it work?
They give it back, and full price back, if it's all nicely maintained, of course. I take it in, trade in, and they just pay the difference and they get the other one. If you try to, no matter the year. And usually with all those instruments, you're welcome. With all those instruments, I can easily sell them. There are a lot of people who want even something which has been already played a little bit before. So it's, you know, not a problem.
Lovely. When an American cusses around you, I saw this meme once about the way an American accent and a British accent sounds to European ears. And like the British accent's like, tiddly widdly, what are some crumpets and tea? You know, that's sort of like very Cockney London accent. While the American accent's like, balls!
Balls.
Oh, we had a little hiccup because the sun came in my eyes and I received the benediction of God here.
The benediction of God. So if we are lucky, there comes another one shortly, but we will see how it's moving, you know. I forgot already your question.
It's okay. I was all serious. We're having this really serious, wonderful conversation about, don't you love these masks? Right? I mean, look at that. Look at that. It's.
Huh?
I come to Cremona and see that? It doesn't even think it picks up my face. Picks up your face.
This one is already washed a lot of times, but this one here with the piano, which is like a smiling. Oh, this one I have to take away. Sorry. Yeah.
So rude. Yeah, like
Jeez. Now, come on. Let's come to your question.
You've been doing this web shop. You haven't had success during this pandemic. What service does a luthier, or should a luthier, provide in order to maximize the satisfaction of their clients and future clients?
So now, first of all, before you have a web shop and all these online facilities to help you to make a living right now, you need to be reliable and you have to be able to deliver a certain quality. And if you're talking about a high quality, it should be high quality, okay?
Of course.
And if you describe something, it should be once the customer receives the instrument, it should be at least what you describe, and better if it is even a little bit better than what you described.
Under promise, over deliver.
This is a must. When you buy online, on one side you want to be sure to know exactly what it is, and on the other side, once you receive it, you want to have a small bonus that it is even nicer than you expected. And this is for instruments, for everything you're purchasing. And as a violin maker nowadays, you have to fulfill the ability to deliver a certain quality. So if you don't have this, you're out of business. Yeah.
I would love to talk about the configurator that you have. We've talked about it earlier today, and I think it's wonderful.
Because you didn't know about it.
I didn't know about this. So for those of you out there that have purchased things online, like cars, if you've ever went and dreamed about getting a vehicle and you can choose the colors and go inside and outside, all those things. Edgar has something very similar to that, but for violins, and hopefully shortly after this trip,
we're
cellos.
already for the cello, but it should be ready. I'm not sure if I will be able to within September, but in October for sure. The idea actually is already 5-6 years old. I had the idea already for many years, but now finally I took my lockdown time to proceed and to complete it. And similar to in the car industry, that you can configure your, let's say, Fiat 500, and most of the Fiat 500 are bought like this. And in the violin business, similar. This is missing, and you can just specify all your requests, and then I receive an email, and by looking at what you have chosen and how you're describing the sound, and maybe some little more information below what you're playing on and what you're dreaming of, and your sound imagination and the color of the varnish and the model and everything, then I can send you an offer of different options, what I can offer you for your dream instrument you were describing and configuring on the configurator. And I think it's another additional help to understand better what you are dreaming of. And even today that we were calling to New Zealand and to Hawaii, in order that they can choose the color for their next instrument, I invited them to go to the configurator and choose at least the color, so then I understand better what they're looking for. So I think this is a good idea, and I'm actually happy that I made it, you know.
I'm really happy you did too. So you can choose the color of varnish.
Mm-hmm. The style, if it's new style, if it's slightly antiqued, if it's antiqued, go on my website, and immediately in the beginning there is this must agreement for the privacy, which is by Italian law or European law, I think. You have to click that, and you agree that I won't spy on you, and then you will not be in any spam or anything for other third parties and all this crap. It's just me behind the whole thing, and and I'm not so sophisticated yet. You have to sign up on a newsletter by yourself.
I hate that. Sign up for newsletter and delete, like unsubscribe immediately. But I would sign up for your newsletter.
It's free. I don't force anybody.
Do you actually do a newsletter?
Yes.
You write it?
Not so yes, I'm the one who's writing, and then my daughter, mainly Nina, is doing this kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, since I know how much work is behind creating a newsletter, I'm reading them all I'm getting, and then I throw or I cancel from the list if I'm not interested. But there's a lot of work behind something like this. I didn't expect it, you know. As long as you didn't make your own newsletter, you know, you don't know how much work is behind all that.
So you have this configurator, and you can choose the finish, you can choose the varnish, and let's just talk about the Scala Perfecta concerning the for the cello particularly, because the cellist watching this. If they want a Scala Perfecta cello and they go to configurator, what are the options for this particular level?
if they know already that they qualify for this price range, then it's good that they just write it. But usually people write that they're a beginner, or that they have a Chinese cello right now and they want to grade up, or they play on an instrument, another instrument, or a Romanian cello or whatever. And then I understand what kind of level they could be interested, and I send them like 2 or 3 different options, so then they can choose out of that.
And going up a level, then you have the Lineamaki, which are 100% made in his shop.
Yeah, handmade in my workshop. Yes. They can choose the model, the varnish.
It's really everything.
Yeah.
And when you talk about models, we're talking about, how about, because we talked last time about the Montigliara, the Guarineri, the Amati, the Stradivari, but there's also Ruggeri, there's many other models. And on the walls of your shop, there's all these different forms. You can choose the size. You can choose, interesting question,
Now he's cleaning the square.
Hope he doesn't come into the square.
Very close to the Montagnana. Musicians who want this difference, they're on the master level usually. Yeah. But I'm always open for every kind of mob.
Good. And I hope that thing goes away.
It's coming again.
It's literally coming up at the outlet.
It's just a pain.
Hey, at least the streets are clean, right? After Lineamaki, you have another level, which isn't just at your master level.
Future master, I call it.
Future master.
Yeah, which are my apprentice, young makers who are already masters, but they're promising, you know. It's a good chance to invest and to get also for a little bit less money something already authentic from a single person. This is the key point, that one person makes that instrument, and that's the whole story about it. So those instruments come already with the certificate also of the consortium, so the creation is made, and we have to make pictures during the process of making, and so you have already something documented, even not only that I tell you that it is made in a way, but even officially certified by a different organization out of my workshop that it is made in my workshop by that person. This has a different additional value.
Why should somebody make the effort to come to Cremona? But first, answer the first question. Cellos from Cremona, particularly you, because you prefer, and because this is not a violin channel.
No, I prefer to make it all one question altogether, because actually, why? Okay.
You answered off camera, and I don't care if violinists, I love you guys, I love the violin, but my luthier prefers to make the double bass and cello.
That's something I would love to make all the time, but then the reality is that I make more violins, sorry, but it's also because it's smaller and it goes quicker. But I would love to make only cello and double bass, it's true. Huh? But there are not so many double bass players who want to buy so expensive and precious double basses, I don't know. While cellists are more and more, yeah? It seems like there are more and more cellists around, I don't know.
Because cello's cool.
Many years ago, everybody here in Cremona was only making violins, and now more and more cellos are being made. To answer your question, why a cello from Cremona, or what is a cello special from Cremona, it's difficult to answer, but certainly the fact that we're like 160 official workshops in one town makes the fact that the competition is very high, and so there's no other city in the world, even if there are huge towns around the world, but the fact that you get something from Cremona is a certain quality guarantee as well, because the competition is very high. I go for lunch always with a colleague of mine. I make part of the consortium. We have an aperitivo with a violin maker, and Friday evening, let's say, with one maker, and we're like 6 makers around, and you are exchanging information, experience, and this helps, and this makes that the quality is quite high and is raising constantly all the time, and this makes it that the instrument, whether it's now a violin, I know he only wants to hear about cello, but whether it's a violin, a viola, a cello or a double bass from Cremona, the level is very high, and nowadays I would say it's the highest worldwide because there's so many makers in one town working together.
During the interview with Ned Steinberger, we talked about the technology that like Steinberger uses to make his electric cellos, which we'll see later today. And he's yet to see one played for him. And he talks about the precision of using CNC machines and 3D printing and machines like that. How are more traditional luthiers, I know you want to make by hand, but how does that compare, something that made by hand versus something made by machine, measured to sometimes a micrometer, something very, very, very small, as opposed to something made by hand? Is there appreciation becoming more or less for the handmade, or do people understand the depth of what it takes to make something handmade?
That's all my YouTube channel is all about that. Because if it would be so easy to use a machinery and just pull out, push out, pull out, a constant quality all the time the same way. This is like mass production. This is what Chinese are doing already in a very high level, and I'm grateful that they do it, so a lot of people can start with little money already, and most of you, I guess, started with something like this, and that's great. And only few of them can afford to get something from Cremona, handmade from Cremona. I don't boycott now machinery. I also have machinery. I have a bandsaw, a drill, and things like this. So it's just when you use machinery, you just have to know if it's a real help or if it takes you away the ability to understand what you're doing. So if now, let's say, the pegs are made with machinery by whatever machinery, that doesn't really make you any difference. Or the precision pegs, they work well, they probably are made by machinery, right?
Of course.
I wouldn't even know how they can make a plastic bag by hand, right?
Yeah, right.
So then every peg would be like a Rolex, you couldn't be paid it anymore. But so it's always a question where you use it, and as a maker you have to make yourself this question: where is it a help, and where do you need your experience? So if I just now would router the arching and everything, I would take myself the opportunity to understand the wood, because it is not that just because I measure an antique instrument and I remake it the same measurements on a new instrument, then I have the same sound. No, it is not. It's the point is that you as a maker have to understand the wood and decide for every instrument a different measurement, because the wood is responding in different ways. So by working roughly, and for somebody out of the trade, it seems like we're wasting our time and sweating unnecessary, but it's a very important step that you understand the material you're working, because one piece of wood on one part of the tree, of the trunk, is different than in another point. So even if I buy entire trees, that doesn't mean that all instruments from that tree have the same thickness, the same arching, and. So you have to understand how important your experience is, and the more you work, the more you can make the instrument better.
Every luthier that you get to know, once you get into this world, shops have their, I call it flavor, I call it their special sauce, their touch. And one Stradivari copy from another Stradivari copy from different luthiers will be different. Probably 160 different ones here in Cremona in and of itself. So just because there is a Gore booth cello here, there's probably 159 variations of that same type of copy in this area. And I've noticed with your instruments, there's just a certain flavor to it. There's an expectation of it to play, because I played this instrument for such a long time. when I play other instruments he's played, it's like something very familiar, even though it's new. Because you know, and it's that deep connection. So if you ever want to get into this world, understand that when you choose a luthier, you're choosing a luthier preferably for life. You're forging a relationship with the man, the woman, the shop, the wood, everything. For me, it's a relationship that is quite unique.
The ideal solution is a choice for your life.
And I really consider that to be, I consider, that you, as a cellist, you have your teacher that dispenses knowledge to you. You have your ensemble that you perform with. And then the third part of this trinity, this trifecta, is the luthier, which is not just your technician, not just your salesman, but it's your brother, your sister, your person that will open the shop and go out of their way for that. How have you, in your life as a luthier, expressed this relationship with your, do you call them clients? What do you call
customers
them?
Customers? And the customers, certainly customers, but they become all friends. So if I'm writing my newsletter, dear friends, on Patreon for my colleagues, where I created this Patreon, dear friends, they're all for me friends. It makes part of my life, I wake up in the morning and until I fall asleep, I'm just within my violin making, and so they all become friends. In the beginning, I thought, you will sell an instrument and then the one sale and that's it. And then when I look now back over 35 years of violin making, I just see that those customers, some are from the very beginning and that we still are here and they sell to their customers, and we see, and then to their students, and then I go there to their music festival and they organize seminars, and then they need for the conservatory bows, and I show up and they bring. So it's getting more and more friends all around the world, and it's nice. Even with us, it's getting more and more, and this is
third time.
And I'm looking forward that your students are coming to Cremona.
Yeah, I hope you guys do come to Cremona.
This was an invitation.
It is an invitation. Whenever the opportunity presents itself, I would love to. It was supposed to happen this year, but it didn't. But whenever the opportunity and all this passes, I would love my students, my subscribers to come to Cremona, to meet Edgar, to see this, to breathe this air, to be on the piazza, to experience what it is like to be what I consider the mecca of violin making, of cello making, and to be in a shop of a true master. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will happen.
I want to see a concert. Jonathan and friends in Piazza del Duomo of Cremona.
You can't say that because I'll surprise them. Like I always surprise people. Like today I surprised you. And we had a private concert from Edgar.
Oh God, I hope you don't put that online, okay? I don't like that idea.
I know, that was a special request from a student of mine who wanted to know, and this is just like a bonus question. Do luthiers play? Do you guys play your instruments? I mean, I know you don't consider yourself.
I would say more than half of the violin makers are actually playing because they were musicians and at a certain point they switched over. But violin makers also are coming from a different direction. So, or you're a musician and then you come into that world, or you're a craftsman, you love to work with wood, you come into music instrument making and then you get into it like this. So I'm one of those who's just made everything by hand, from radio-controlled boats and cars and airplanes, and then slowly to instrument making, and then I made guitars, and then from guitars I came to violins.
Talk about that, the direction, because Ned Steinberger, when I interviewed him, he said he wasn't a luthier, that he's a designer. He designs and he has factories and he has people who work the wood, make it for him. And he's not a guitar player either. He's not a cello player either, but he's obsessed with, the nuts and bolts, as he said, about the instruments that he makes. How is it different, you coming as a craftsman, a craftsman of wood, a master craftsman of wood, to this world, as opposed to a musician coming to this world? how would that be expressed in the instruments that they make, or the process by which they do?
Into the sound and judging the sound, and this I slowly grew into it the more I was making instruments. So this is something is an ability you just learn, just like you learn how to bend the ribs or how to put the purfling or carve a scroll. So you slowly grow into it. I think it was very easy for me, and the fact that I'm not a musician and that I'm coming from the craftsman part and grew into the sound of music gave me the ability to be a little bit more neutral, and I can judge quicker than others because I don't have a standard from the past. I listen to it and I can be quite straightforward and describe the sound without checking what others are saying or things like this. Usually if we are more makers than one instrument, I'm always the first one who is judging the sound, but I don't know if it's my person or if it's my experience. It's up to you.
A question, last bonus question would be
bonus question.
How has your culture as being Austrian, coming to Cremona, affected your business practice, your way you make instruments? Has that ever played a role? Because you talk about people being very Italian in the way they do things. You're not necessarily from here.
There is definitely a difference in the way of being in Italy, in the north of Italy, south of Italy, but Italy generally compared to Austria, Germany, France, and all these countries. So being Austrian, let's say I'm a little bit more organized, and it's a little bit more that in Austria and Germany we're a little bit more educated to be more organized. Germans are very much organized. I believe that Austrians are just how the geography is. We are a compromise between Germany and Italy. It's not a joke, it's for real. I'm serious. And now you would say that I'm talking now bad about Italy, and this is not at all the fact, because let's say now the coronavirus. All the countries were pointing Italy, why is it in Italy so strong, and, but it is because Italy is the center of economy in Europe. This part, Lombardia, with Cremona, Brescia, Bergamo and Milan, and this is the reason why it was distributed from this area to the rest. This is one point, and then I think that now Italians are talking always bad about their country and about their state and all these things, but I think that they have, because of their not so strict organization of being, they have handled this extreme emergency situation very, very well. They can, in Bergamo, they made within 2 or 3 weeks, they made an entire hospital. You couldn't do that with a Japanese or a German, you know. They work until that time, and here in Italy, we have to do it. Let's get ready, let's do it, you know. And so they're really good in improvisation, and this is a good part. It's you can laugh in some circumstances about this, but it's actually in very tough emergency situation, this is actually a pro and not a contra. So I always liked the way of Italians, how they face to resolve a certain situation. And then on other things, it seems that there's nothing moving, and then silently they have solved a lot of problems. So there are, I think, more people talking bad about some things about Italy, and the first ones who are talking bad about Italy are Italians, but there's a lot of things are changing, and they are changing, and they are able to change, and which I would say is also a big pro. Yeah? So I love to be here. And certainly, I don't hide that I'm from Austria and I'm well organized and I can organize my things and everything, but it's interesting. I love to be here.
I'm glad you do. Well, it's been another trip here. It's always wonderful to talk to you. And I always ask you for some closing words of wisdom. Anything you'd like to share?
I think it's just nice what he's doing. I think it's great that we can connect to each other like this. And I'm looking forward to that next year. The situation is already very different than nowadays, right now. But to be prepared, just we should all act like it will not be over, and so just get prepared and do your homework, yeah, and have fun, play a lot of cello, and enjoy life. Okay?
Because music sounds better with cello.
I have same shirt. I didn't wear it today. Sorry.
Music does sound better with cello. From the violin cello maker Edgar Russ, Jonathan Humphries here in Cremona. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, thanks for sharing, subscribing, and just remember, eventually we'll get out of this, right?
Yes.
As we go.
But right now we have the mask, huh?
As we'll get out of this with style. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ale.
See, that was a really efficient one.